Good day, dear students. I am Chmiron Sergey the head of Human Anatomy Department in Samara State Medical University. Today we will talk about innervation of cavities in our body. First we will talk about innervation of walls of thoracic, abdominal, and some words about pelvic cavity. And at last we will talk about principle of innervation of internal organs in thoracic, abdominal, and also in pelvic cavities. In details, we will talk about innervation of lumbar wall and also about sacral part of body, about walls of these parties, when we will study plexuses, somatic plexuses in innervation of lower limb, about lumbar and sacral plexuses. In details, we will talk about innervation of walls only in thoracic and superior parts of abdominal cavity. So first let's remember the formation of spinal nerve. You may see that spinal nerve forms from anterior and posterior radiuses, and you may see that at posterior radiuses you may see the ganglion which contains the sensitive bodies of cells, nerve cells, and also you may see that interior radix contains motor axons and also vegetative axons. For example, you may see the formation of spinal nerve at the level of maybe fifth, maybe sixth thoracic segment of spinal cord. And also you can see that motor fibers go to skeletal muscles. And you may see that they go through the anterior and posterior rami. So you may see that the bodies of motor cells are situated in the anterior horns of gray matter of spinal cord. But also you can see that in thoracic part of spinal cord they are situated lateral hairs, cornu in Latin, and their cords contain the bodies of vegetative cells. And you may see that vegetative fibers in green color also go through the radix anterior, also form the spinal nerve, but next you may see that they divided into ramus communicans albus, white communicans ramus, or albus. It's white in English, albus in Latin, and they go to motor cells. And you may see the main difference that motor vegetative cells are situated outside the spinal cord, outside the central nervous system. And you may see that these bodies or these motor vegetative nerve cells form the ganglion. For example, you may see one of thoracic ganglion of sympathetic trunk. And also you may see that one of kind of fibers go through this ganglion and without transmission to neural cells, and they go to another ganglion, lower or upper of each of these, and they transmit to motor cells of other ganglion. And you may see that some preganglionic fibers form ramus interganglionaris, myelized fibers between two neighbor ganglia called ramus interganglionalis. And also you may see that some of fibers go through this ganglion to prevertebral ganglion. Prevertebral ganglion. This is very important to understanding the formation of vegetative plexuses for innervation of internal organs. So what we can see here, also we can see the sensitive ganglion, ganglion spinale. You know that this ganglion contains the body cells, body of neural cells with sensitive function, pseudo-unipolar cells in shape. And also you may see the difference between spinal ganglion and paravertebral or prevertebral ganglion. You may see that this ganglion has only bodies of sensitive neural cells, but vegetative ganglion contains the bodies of neural cells of vegetative neural system, and also it contains the synapses, the place of transmit one fiber to another. So you may see that sympathetic neural system, for example, on this picture, forms the paravertebral ganglions and also prevertebral ganglions. But in details, we'll talk about this later. And now you may see the main difference between somatic and vegetative neural system. The somatic neural cells are situated in central nervous system. You may see, for example, the anterior horns of gray matter, and also you may see the bodies of somatic nerve system. And also you may see the difference that motor vegetative cells, that's bodies, are situated outside the central nervous system, and they form the ganglions. This is gray matter outside the central nervous system. You must remember that the somatic fibers go to skeletal muscles and they innervate these muscles. They form anterior and posterior rami, and as we talked about sacral plexus, the anterior rami forms somatic plexuses. And you know that we have cervical plexus, brachial plexus, lumbar plexus, sacral plexus, and also coccygeal plexus. All these 5 plexuses are somatic, and all of them form via anterior rami of spinal nerves. Only anterior rami. As you remember, the posterior rami don't form the plexuses. So we talk some words about innervation of valves. And as I told you, we in details talked about innervation of thoracic cavity and also about superior parts of abdominal cavity. But about lumbar part and sacral part, we will talk in details when we will study lumbar, sacral and coccygeal somatic plexuses. So you may see the formation of spinal nerve. You may see also vertebral column here, and also you may see the spinal cord with horns. Next, you may see the radices, posterior and anterior radices, and also spinal ganglion. Also, you can see the formation of spinal nerve, and Next you may see the intercostal nerve. What we can see? You may see intercostal nerve, and you must know that intercostal nerve is the anterior ramus of thoracic spinal nerve. Also you may see the posterior ramus, which goes to deep muscles of back, and also it forms the cutaneous or skin ramus for innervation of posterior parts of thoracic skin. Also you can see that cutaneous ramus goes from intercostal nerve, and it forms also ramus anterior and posterior for innervation anterior lateral parts of thoracic wall. In details you may see this cutaneous rami here. You may see for example the 10th intercostal nerve. There is somatic nerve, and it also forms from anterior branch of spinal nerve. And also you may see the branch of this nerve, lateral cutaneous branch and anterior cutaneous branch. All these branches innervate the skin of thoracic wall, and you may see that it gives two branches, medial and lateral, from anterior cutaneous branch, and from lateral cutaneous branch go two branches, anterior and posterior. So the 3rd, 4th and 5th intercostal nerves also give mammar branches for innervation of masticatory gland or mammary gland. Next you may see the posterior branch of spinal nerves, cutaneous branch. You may see for example 9th, 10th, 11th, and also you may see the branch of intercostal nerves here. But now you may see the branch anterior cutaneous branch from intercostal nerves, and also you may see their medial and lateral branches. And also you can see the connection between the branch of intercostal nerves and the nerves of cervical plexus. You may see supraclavicular nerves of cervical plexus here. And you must know that lateral and anterior intercostal branches from 2nd, maybe 3rd till 5th gives sensory branch for mammary gland. Mammary gland. Glandula mammaria, it's in Latin. You remember that the inferior wall of thoracic cavity is diaphragm, and also divides these cavities into thoracic and abdominal. So you may see that this is border between thoracic and abdominal cavity. It forms from muscle, phrenic muscle, and also the nerve which goes from cervical plexus is also named phrenical nerve. You may see that phrenical nerve from right and left side goes through diaphragm. It gives motor fibers for phrenicus muscles or diaphragm muscle. You may see these motor fibers here. Also, the muscle fibers of diaphragm receive innervation from intercostal nerve, and also lumbar part of diaphragm innervates with lumbar nerves. But the main nerves which innervate diaphragm are phrenicus nerves, which passes from cervical plexus. And also you may see that these phrenical nerves give abdominal branch with sensitive fibers for innervation internal organs in abdominal cavity. And they form the vegetative plexus in abdominal cavity. Such is solar plexus or ciliac plexus. So, let's talk about innervation of internal organs. I told you about the main difference between somatic and vegetative nerve system. And you may see that at low picture the principle of innervation of somatic nerve system. You may see that in somatic system the motor cell body is situated in central nerve system. And you know about motor nuclei in spinal cord, in anterior horns of spinal cord, and also you know about motor nuclei in cranial nerves, And you may see that the axons passes to organ, to skeletal muscles, and also you may see the transmitter substance, acetylcholine. At the superior part of this picture, you may see the principle of innervation in vegetative or autonomic nerve system. So you may see, for example, the sympathetic part and parasympathetic part. What is the difference between them? You may see that they have common morphology and also they have the difference. What are common? I told you about the difference between somatic nerve system and vegetative nerve system, that motor cells in vegetative nerve system are situated outside the central nerve system. And for example, you may see the ganglion, sympathetic and also parasympathetic, which contain the bodies of motor vegetative cells. And you may see also the place of transmission, synapse, here and also here. And also you may see two types of fibers in vegetative nerve system. Preganglionic, they are the axons from intermediate neural cells which are situated in the vegetative center in central nervous system. In thoracic, lumbar part of sympathetic nerve system, and also in cranial and sacral parts for parasympathetic nerve system. But they are not motor cells, they are intermediate cells. They give commands for motor cells in transmit morphology subtraction, such are synapses. And after ganglion you may see the line of postganglionic nerve fiber. You may see that postganglionic nerve fibers go to smooth muscle cell, to glands, to sebaceous and sudoriferous glands of skin, and etc. And you may see that the difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic parts of vegetative or autonomic nerve system, mediator, transmitter substance, adrenaline in sympathetic nerve system and acetylcholine in parasympathetic nerve system. But also you may see the difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve system, the length of preganglionic and postganglionic nerve fibers. You may see that preganglionic fibers in sympathetic system more shorter than in parasympathetic, and also we may see in opposite cases that postganglionic nerve fibers are longer in sympathetic system than in parasympathetic. So we talked about common and different features in autonomic, vegetative, parasympathetic and parasympathetic nerve systems, and also we talked about difference between formation of somatic motor innervation and vegetative or autonomic motor innervation. So I told you that there are two parts of vegetative nerve system. First sympathetic, second parasympathetic. Maybe first parasympathetic, second sympathetic. It's not important. So now we can see the part of sympathetic nerve system with the motor sympathetic cells, and you may see the formation of sympathetic trunk here. Sympathetic trunk. So what is a sympathetic trunk? We talk in details about this. So sympathetic trunk is the complex of paravertebral ganglions with motor cells, and also, as I told you, with interganglionar preganglionic myelinized fibers which connect two neighbor ganglions. So sympathetic trunk has several parts. Cervical part, and for example you may see this cervical ganglion cervical inferior, or low cervical ganglion, or cervical thoracic ganglion in the right part of this picture. And also, so there are 3 cervical ganglions, superior, medium and inferior. So there are 12 thoracic ganglion, and you may see these ganglion here at the right, at the left side, by side of thoracic part of vertebral column. And also there are 4 lumbar, 4 maybe 5 lumbar ganglion, 4 or 5 sacral ganglions, and 1 impaired coccygeal ganglion. So what we must know. First I want to tell, for example, the brachial plexus here and the bodies of vegetative sympathetic nerve system in cervical thoracic ganglion here. And you may see that postganglionic neurofibers from these ganglion passes over the somatic nerves. They connect with somatic nerves and passes with somatic nerves to blood vessels of skeletal muscles, to skin, sebaceous or salivary glands, for smooth muscle cell of blood vessels and also of skin, and they passes over the somatic fibers. And here you may see the principle of distribution of these postganglionic sympathetic fibers over the vessels. You may see that these postganglionic sympathetic fibers form the secondary plexuses, secondary sympathetic plexuses over each of vessel, over the artery, over the vein, and they not only has the distribution function, they also innervate the smooth muscle cells of wall of vessel. You know that each vessel, blood vessel, not for microcirculatory circulation. Big arteries, big veins have three tunics in their wall, and media tunic is called media, and it contains the smooth muscle cells, and these fibers innervate these smooth muscle cells. They passes over the vessels, over the arteries, over the veins to internal organs. So you may see the thoracic part, and also you can see the part of thoracic, part of sympathetic trunk. You may see the ganglions here. Also you can see the interganglion connective fibers, ramus communicans interganglionare, interganglionar ramus. And also you may see that communicans rami, gray communicans rami, they are postganglionic fibers, passes to somatic nerves, such, for example, is intercostal nerve, and these sympathetic postganglionic fibers go to skin for innervate the smooth muscle cells in skin, and also glands, sudorifery or sebaceous glands in skin. And also they form the plexuses over the vessels. Also you can see the sympathetic trunk here. You may see that the fibers of sympathetic trunk which passes from superior or upper nodes or ganglions, passes to aorta and form the aortic plexus here. Also they go to heart and forms the heart plexus, internal and external heart plexuses. And also you can see that these fibers form the esophageal plexus and pulmonary plexus. All these plexuses are vegetative, and they form from with postganglionic sympathetic fibers. The motor cells are situated here in sympathetic trunk, in thoracic part, and postganglionic fibers passes to internal organ, to heart, to esophagus, to lungs. Next you may see that in thoracic part of sympathetic trunk splanchnic nerves form. You may see the formation of greater splanchnic nerve, which called also nervus splanchnicus major. This nerve forms from 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th ganglions, and this nerve, greater splanchnic nerve, or nervus splanchnicus major in Latin, forms with preganglionic sympathetic fibers. These fibers passes without transmission to motor vegetative cells through these ganglions, and passes next via diaphragm to abdominal cavity. So from 9th and 10th ganglions, maybe 11th ganglions, formed lesser splanchnic nerve. Lesser splanchnic nerve. It forms here, and also maybe form inconstant splanchnic nerve, which called emusplanchnic nerve. It also force from thoracic ganglion in count 12, maybe 11 and 12. All this splanchnic nerve forms with the preganglionic sympathetic fibers, and they passes through diaphragm from thoracic to abdominal cavity. So you may see on this picture the lumbar and sacral parts of sympathetic trunk. In details you may see the lumbar and sacral ganglions here. You may see the sacral here and lumbar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lumbar ganglions, and here too. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, there is a constant quantity, and also you may see there maybe 4, maybe 5. For example, on the right side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At the left side, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. There is inconstant, but in often cases there are 4, maybe 5 sacral ganglions in sympathetic trunk. And also you may see interganglionary fibers, rami interganglionary, which connects the ganglions at the left or at the right side, and also they connect the neighbor ganglions from left to right side or from right to left side too. So next, in details, you may see the prevertebral ganglions. As you remember, I told you earlier that greater and lesser splanchnic nerves form in thoracic part of sympathetic trunk. They are preganglionary fibers, preganglionic fibers, which passes to prevertebral ganglions. And for example, you may see the formation of internal plexus, sympathetic plexus, which called solar plexus or celiac plexus. And you may see the ganglions of solar or celiac plexus. You may see celiac ganglions here. This is pair ganglion, right and left. And also you may see impaired superior mesenteric ganglion under the celiac trunk. And also you may see the aortorenal ganglions here. So all these 5 ganglions, 2 celiac ganglions, 2 aortorenal ganglions, and impaired superior mesenteric ganglion form the solar or celiac vegetative plexus over the celiac trunk. So these ganglion, all these ganglion contain the bodies of sympathetic motor nerves, nerve cells. But postganglionic fibers, motor sympathetic fibers, passes over the vessels, over the arteries from celiac trunk. Next they go to aorta and form the aortic plexus, abdominal aortic plexus, and all these sympathetic fibers form the secondary plexuses over the arteries. And also they coat such each artery. So if, for example, secondary plexus goes over the superior mesenteric artery, it's called superior mesenteric plexus. If plexus goes over the renal artery, it also called renal plexus. So named plexuses, such are arteries. but there are secondary plexuses which form from postganglionic sympathetic fibers, and I repeat that the bodies of these sympathetic cells are situated in these ganglions of solar plexus. Next you may see prevertebral plexus of superior hypogastric plexus here, and it passes to inferior hypogastric plexus here. In details we will talk about this some later. So, for example, you may see the name of main vegetative plexuses, and you must remember about the names of these primary plexuses and secondary plexuses, greater secondary plexuses. For example, here you may see plexus caroticus communis, caroticus externus, caroticus internus, plexus vertebralis. All these plexuses are secondary and they are situated over these arteries. For example, arteria carotis communis, common carotid artery, external carotid artery, internal carotid artery, and vertebral artery. They are so named plexuses which are situated over those arteries. Next, thoracic part. I told you about thoracic aortic plexus, heart or cardiacus plexus, esophageal plexus, and pulmonary plexus. So all these plexuses are primary, and also they contain the ganglion, some prevertebral ganglions in there. And next you may see abdominal part, and you may see sympathetic plexuses here. So, for example, celiac and aorticus abdominalis plexuses are primary, and they contain the prevertebral ganglions with the motor neural cells of vegetative sympathetic part. Next you may see superior and inferior mesenteric plexuses over superior and inferior mesenteric arteries, which are situated over these arteries. They are secondary plexuses. They form only with the postganglionic fibers of sympathetic part of vegetative system. And also, as I told you earlier, renal plexus and iliac plexus. Iliacus communis, iliacus externus, and iliacus externus plexuses are so named such as arteries. Common iliac artery, external iliac artery, and also internal iliac artery. And in pelvic region you may see two primary plexuses, hypogastric superior and hypogastric inferior plexuses. They form with the prevertebral ganglions of sympathetic nerve system, and they also, all these plexuses also contain not only sympathetic system, they also contain the parts of parasympathetic vegetative nerve system. So here you may see the part of parasympathetic nerve system, and as I told you in the lecture about head and neck innervation, when we talked about cranial nerves, I told about vagus nerve. So vagus nerve has four parts: cranial and neck part, thoracic and abdominal part. There are four parts in vagus. And you know that vagus nerve contains all three types of fibers: motor fibers, sensitive fibers, and also parasympathetic vegetative fibers. So you may see the part of cervical, part of vagus, thoracic part here, and next we will see the abdominal part. But now let's talk about cervical vagus, cervical part of vagus. you may see the postganglionic fibers, but we must know that vagus is not only nerve. These neuroscientists discovered vagus nerve in human, and they said that vagus nerve contains more than 800 ganglions inside it. Each of it contains the bodies of effector or motor neurocells, parasympathetic of course, inside the trunk of vagus. So we can see macroscopy nerve, but if we can see this nerve in microscopy, in light microscopy for example, we may see the little ganglion inside it. Not one, more than 800. So the postganglionic fibers of vagus passes to aorta. They form depressor nerve from cervical part, and also the superior cardiac nerves of vagus passes from cervical part of vagus. They also take part in formation of pulmonary plexus, of cardiac plexus, and also in esophageal plexus. You may see that vagal nerves passes by side of esophagus, and they also give branches for aorta, for heart, for formation of cardiac plexus, pulmonary plexus, from thoracic part of vagus. And you may see thoracic cardiac nerves here, thoracic pulmonary nerves here, and also you may see the formation of esophageal plexus, not only from sympathetic trunk as I told you earlier, also from vagus nerve. For example, you may see esophageal plexus here from vagus. You may see the participation of sympathetic trunk nerves, postganglionic, esophageal nerves, and formation of esophageal plexus. And also you may see the participation of sympathetic and also parasympathetic fibers in formation of pulmonary and cardiac plexuses. In topography featuring, you may see that vagal trunks passes over the esophagus with a lot of anastomosis here, and as I told you, vagal nerves form the esophageal plexus here, and also we may see that the more fibers of left vagus passes on the anterior surface of esophagus, but right vagus passes behind the esophagus and form the posterior vagal trunk. You may see that vagal trunks form over the esophagus, but more of fibers of anterior trunk passes from left vagus nerve, but more of fibers of posterior vagal trunk passes from right vagus. And also you can see a lot of anastomosis here to formation of esophageal plexus with parasympathetic and also with sympathetic from sympathetic trunk fibers. So here you may see that vagal trunks passes over through the diaphragm over esophagus, with esophagus, and they passes to abdominal cavity inside the esophageal hiatus in diaphragm. For example, you may see the vagal and sympathetic innervation of heart here, you may see that both their parts of vegetative or autonomic system take parts innervation of heart, of lungs, of esophagus, and also of pulmonary, of lungs, pulmonary and tracheopulmonary branches. So you may see that formation of heart plexuses take part here, and also you may see the motor cells inside the heart here, and these cells receive commands from vagus nerve and also from sympathetic nerves. But vagal fibers passes to pacemakers, and more of fibers from right vagus passes to first type pacemaker or sine atrial node in heart. But more of fibers of left vagus passes to atrioventricular node, the pacemaker of second type, and they regulate the function of these pacemakers in heart. And so you may see extra organ heart plexus here. Before it, you know, we see the principle of formation of intra-organic plexus of heart, but here you may see the extra-organic plexus, which forms between the aortic arch and part of the place of division trachea into principal bronchi. And also on the picture you may see the esophageal plexus, which form over the esophagus. Here you may see the esophageal plexus, thoracic aortical plexus, and also you may see the sympathetic trunk here, the formation of greater and lesser splanchnic nerves, which passes through the diaphragm clefts to form in abdominal cavity abdominal plexuses. For example, solar plexus here from greater and lesser splanchnic nerve. In details we can see the solar plexus here. You may see solar or celiac plexus. You may see that information of solar plexus take parts not only sympathetic fibers and not only prevertebral ganglions here, such as celiac dexter, celiac sinister, here, yes, also the superior mesenteric ganglion. You may see all these ganglions over the celiac trunk from abdominal aorta. Also you may see the part of renal ganglion, but also information of celiac plexus take part vagus too. It takes part from posterior vagal trunk, and you may see that one of branch of posterior vagal trunk passes to celiac plexus and also takes part information of this plexus. Vagal nerve contains not only vegetative parasympathetic fibers. Vagal nerve also contains sensitive fibers. All these sensitive fibers take part in innervation of internal organ too, such as esophagus, such as stomach, such as liver, and other, gallbladder and other. So we can see For example, celiac plexus, the formation of vegetative plexus. You must know that the important difference between the formation of somatic and vegetative plexuses are ganglions. And these ganglions contain the motor prevertebral sympathetic neural cell bodies. And as I told you, the somatic plexuses form with the anterior branches of spinal nerves. So you may see also the innervation of suprarenal gland, and you must know the different of innervation of suprarenal gland. You may see that preganglionar fibers, sympathetic fibers, passes to this gland, to medullary substance of this gland. This is very important because to other parts of internal organs only postganglionic fibers passes. So for example, the cortical substance receive innervation from postganglionic fibers over the arteries, but medullary substance receive the innervation from preganglionar fibers, preganglionic fibers. You may see on this picture, you may see the variation of formation of vagal trunks over the esophagus. You may see the frequency of cases of anterior and posterior vagal trunks here. In red color you may see, for example, posterior vagal trunk from anterior and posterior view here, and also you can see the in blue color the left vagal trunk from anterior vagal trunk from left vagus from anterior view, and also from posterior view here. Next you may see the abdominal part of vagus. You may see anterior and posterior vagal trunks. They passes to stomach, so anterior vagal trunk gives branch for innervation of stomach. Posterior vagal trunk, you may see it takes part in the formation of cellular or celiac plexus here, and also you may see sympathetic ganglions from sympathetic trunk, from greater and lesser splanchnic nerves here, and now you may see the nerve to liver and to gallbladder from anterior vagal trunk, from stomach branch here, and the innervation of vagus provoke the formation of to produce the acid in stomach, enzymes in stomach, and it provoke to formation of diseases in stomach too, without good food, without good meal. So vagus nerve regulates the production of acid in stomach and enzymes. Also not only in stomach, also in duodenum, also in jejunum, and also in pancreas. Now you may see the secondary splenic plexus here, and also you may see the branch to body and tail of pancreas here. they passes over the arteries from splenic artery, and also we see the secondary plexus to stomach from splenic artery. They passes over the arteria gastricis brevis to stomach. And also we see that these fibers, sympathetic and also parasympathetic, passes to spleen. Now you may see the stomach plexuses, anterior and posterior here in gray color, in black color, anterior in gray color, posterior plexus, and also you may see intramural inside the wall of stomach ganglions here with motor cells. There are two types of plexuses, intermuscular and subserosis. Subserosis, intramuscular and submucosous plexuses, which regulates from vagus nerve. And now you may see the innervation of stomach from vagus. You may see that anterior trunk, vagal trunk, gives branch for stomach, it gives branch for liver, and also it gives branch for gallbladder and for suprarenal gland. Now you may see the innervation of secondary plexus of gastroepiploic artery. This is right gastroepiploic artery. Its branch to colon transversum, and also you may see the branch to duodenum and the branch to colon ascendens. Here you may see the aortic abdominal plexus, hypogastric plexus superior, and pair hypogastric inferior plexus. Now you may see the hypogastric superior plexus here. It's situated in the place of aortic abdominal aorta decision when it divides to common iliac arteries. Now you may see the picture about innervation, about formation of superior hypogastric plexus at inferior hypogastric plexus. So you may see that superior hypogastric plexus is formed from preganglionar fibers of sympathetic trunk. You know that these fibers go through these ganglions without transmission to these motor cells. They passes from lateral horns of spinal cord, and they transmit only here, only on the ganglions of superior hypogastric plexus. And also the postganglionic fibers passes downside to pair inferior hypogastric plexus, which is situated at the lateral side in cellular tissue over the rectum in lesser pelvis cavity. And now you may see that the sympathetic fibers from sacral part of sympathetic trunk passes to inferior sacral or inferior hypogastric plexuses. These nerves called sacral splanchnic nerves. But also parasympathetic splanchnic nerves passes from anterior branch of sacral nerves to form these plexus, to form this plexus. These parasympathetic nerves are called pelvic splanchnic nerves, but I repeat that sympathetic nerves are called sacral splanchnic nerves. Sacral splanchnic nerves are sympathetic, pelvic splanchnic nerves are parasympathetic. So pelvic splanchnic nerves contain the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers, and also they contain the sensitive fibers for innervation of internal organs in pelvic cavity. For example, rectum, uterus or womb, vagina in females, and also prostate gland in males, and other organs, seminal vesicles and other, and also for innervation bladder. Here you may see the innervation of bladder and urethra. You may see that splanchnic nerves, pelvic splanchnic nerves, which contain parasympathetic fibers, preganglionic parasympathetic fibers, transmit into motor parasympathetic fibers in ganglions. All these ganglions are situated near organ, near prostate gland, near bladder, and they form extra organ plexuses. For example, plexus pubovesicalis in males and ultravaginalis in females. Here you may see the plexus hypogastricus inferior and plexus hypogastricus superior, and here you may see superior hypogastric plexus and pair inferior hypogastric plexus. Here we can see the innervation of pelvic organs in female. You may see the womb or uterus, tuba uterina, also vagina, and here you may see the in blue color the splanchnic pelvic nerves which contain the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers, and also we may see that these fibers transmit to motor cells in blue colors, motor parasympathetic cells in uterovaginalis plexus, and postganglionic cells passes to organs, to womb or to uterus, to vagina, and also to tubes. In red color you may see the sympathetic fibers, and also you may see that preganglionic sympathetic fibers passes to inferior hypogastric plexus, and they transmit to ganglions, sympathetic ganglions in uterovaginal plexus, and also sympathetic fibers, postganglionic fibers, passes over the vessels to these organs. And in black color you may see these sensitive neurofibers, which passes from lumbar spinal nerves and also from sacral spinal nerves. For example, you may see pudendus nerve from sciatic plexus, which gives sensitive branch for internal pelvic organs. And now you may see the male innervation. You may see in blue color pelvic splanchnicus nerves, which passes from second, third and fourth anterior branch of sacral nerves. Here you may see the transmission of these preganglionic parasympathetic fibers to motor parasympathetic cells, to ganglions, which form the prostate or puba vesicalis or prostatовesicalis plexus, and also they give postganglionic fibers for innervation of bladder and also for external male organs, prostate gland too, and external organs. Now you may see in black color the sensitive innervation of internal and external male organs, and in red color you may see sympathetic vegetative innervation, sacral nerves here, sacral splanchnic nerves, and also from hypogastric plexus, hypogastric nerves with the sympathetic fibers and also with the sensitive fibers. I know that this part in anatomy is very difficult for understanding, but I think that my lecture helps for understand this difficult part in anatomy. These pictures are very good for understanding. So I consider that you will study good this part, and my lecture with these pictures helps to you to understand this part. So the lecture is finished. Thank you very much for attention. Goodbye. See you again.